Okay, so phase 4 was treatment, and this one was a big one that I had a ton of fun on. So the RN goes into the room with the patient's in pain, and the RN has pain medication, and Mr. Dirt is acting like he's in a lot of pain. So I'll just identify a couple of errors I found here. So upon walking into the room, the patient was physically falling out of the bed. And instead of, going ahead and putting that side rail up like the nurse should have, or lowering his bed, she kind of just said, get into your bed, what are you doing? And throws the patient into bed. And this, I just feel like, is a big no-no. You should never physically put your hands on a patient. You should always, be like, hey, come on, Betty, let's get back into bed, or come on, sir, let's get back into bed. That kind of thing. So you don't really want to physically put your hands on a patient and throw them back into bed, because one, you can just get in big trouble for that. That's a big no-no. Two, sounds like a lawsuit. And three, you can hurt the patient more, because he was having stomach pain. So whenever she threw him, he was like, oh, like it really hurt him. So that was a big mistake, I felt like. Also, she didn't wash her hands. She didn't identify herself. She didn't make sure she had the right patient, anything like that. So she just needs to take into account what she kind of did there. Also, she asked the patient his pain level, but she answered him instead of letting him answer her. So she was like, what's your pain on a scale of 1 to 10? It's a 10? Okay, it's a 10. And kind of just played it off like that. She never truly let him answer what his pain was. So that also was an issue. And she told him, I'll give you this pain medicine, but not unless you stay in your bed. So if you want this, you better stay in your bed. So she was kind of like teasing him and threatening him with the pain medicine. Like, you can have this pain medicine if you stay in your bed. So that was also a mistake. Like, you shouldn't kind of bargain with the patient over pain medicine. If the patient has pain medicine ordered and the patient is in pain, you need to give the patient their medicine. Regardless if you agree with what they're doing or not, you can't withhold medication from them. That's, you're going to get against your ethics there, and that's not okay. Also, she put the blood pressure cuff on, and she was like, this is going to be very tight, and she put it as tight as she could. And his blood pressure was high, and whenever he asked about it, she was like, oh, it's all right, knowing that it was high. She did not identify the patient upon entering, or herself, like I said. When she was taking the patient's temperature, she put it into his armpit instead of his mouth, because it was a oral, it could have been used in his armpit. However, I feel like she should have tried his mouth first, because it probably would have worked best that way. And since she couldn't get a reading from his auxiliary region, she was like, oh, this doesn't work, we'll just say it's 100.5, and she made up a temperature. And you can't do that. You can't falsify information. She also was on her phone in the patient's room. You can't be on your personal cell phone in the patient's room. This is a one, just professionalism. Two, it's, if you use your phone everywhere, your phone's dirty. You don't need to be on your phone in the patient's room. The patient could have germs in his room. You have germs on your phone. There's so much cross-contamination there. You don't need to be on your phone. And it's just rude. So she inaccurately checked his pulse. She was like, here, let me check your pulse. And it was like for 2 seconds, and she walked away. I don't feel like she accurately did that at all. She didn't check for respirations ever. She never went over the 8 rights of administrations. For example, like, she didn't identify the patient. She didn't do the 2 checkers. She didn't check the medications against the computer. She didn't document right on time or anything. She didn't make sure it was the right medication for the right dose. She didn't ask about allergies. She left the patient unattended with the medication before he took the medication, and just left the room, left the side rail down, and never gave him his call bell. And he repeatedly asked for his call bell, and told her when she walked into the room in one of the phases that, I'm just trying to get my call bell. And she kept saying, no, you don't need your call bell. You don't need your call bell. I'm coming to check on you. You don't need your call bell. And she never gave him his call bell. So with this, if she would have done some steps differently and he would have had his call bell, the outcome might have been different.